Welcome to today's webinar. While we are waiting for the presentation to start, I'd like to go over a few frequently asked questions. First of all, you will be able to ask questions during the webinar. Just type them into the chat box in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. If there's no chat box showing, you can click the double arrows and the box should expand. By the end of the week, you will receive a white paper covering today's topic, and the webinar will be available on demand via our website. For many of you, this is your first introduction to Insights Now. Insights Now was founded in 2003 and is privately held. We are headquartered in Corvallis, Oregon, and have major offices in cities around the U.S. In the past 6 years, we've experienced great success providing research consulting services to the food, beverage, personal, and household care industries. As experts in consumer product research, our focus is threefold. We design research holistically, resulting in better and faster learning. We routinely apply real-time profiling and reporting to get at consumer emotions. We build knowledge-based systems so you can learn over time and easily spot winners. And ultimately, we are passionate about our clients' business and improving innovation processes. Today, we will be discussing 5 approaches to product optimization. Our speaker is Greg Stucky. In his role as Insights Now's Chief Research Officer, Greg provides strategic product research direction to CPG companies and has consulted on more than 300 new products. His leadership extends beyond Insights Now, most recently chairing the IFT Sensory Evaluation Division and a subcommittee within ASTM International. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Greg Stucky.
Thank you, Michelle. So what does it mean to have an optimal product? When I ask people this, I get a lot of different kinds of answers. The one that achieves the highest liking score, the product that provides the greatest margin, the one that has the best quality. Well, all those are true in part, but I think all of them are off the mark. A product that's been optimized is a product that has charisma and fulfills the desires of a group of people. It's one that becomes ubiquitous to them and connects with them emotionally. It becomes deeply rooted into their lifestyle, their values, and their identity. Now, consumers don't talk about optimized products. The idea of optimization to them is completely foreign. What they do say, however, is that the number one reason that they don't keep buying a product is it because it didn't meet their expectations. And the reason they didn't buy a product in the first place is because it wasn't clearly differentiated from what they were already buying. So if we want to fulfill consumers' expectations with a differentiated product, then we need to deliver a product that has charisma and fulfills the desires of the people. So today, we're going to cover 5 steps that you can take to make your optimization process more effective. We'll start with your brand and talk about how balance allows you to ensure that you're fulfilling people's expectations. Then we'll talk about how you can achieve greater differentiation by targeting your product, consumers, and their situation. And then we'll talk about preferences and how you can use preferences in the design and the optimization of research, as well as how you can deepen your understanding of what drives preference. And finally, we're going to talk about choice and how understanding the types of choices you want people to make will impact your optimization strategy. Now, first I'm going to give a little bit of background of what I mean when I say the word product. To me, a product is a whole entity. It's a foundation. Its foundation is its brand, right? And the brand's purpose, the jobs the product does, and how it's positioned, and all of the elements that make up the conceptual nature all give the product meaning to a person. And surrounding those elements are all the things that you can control: the functionality, features, sensory qualities of your product. And finally, all aspects of how you service the product, including things like warranties, etc. So when I use the word product, I'm assuming a very holistic understanding of what the word product means. Now, one of the most painful things for me to watch are companies who don't balance their science and their marketing with their brand. And when you don't have these two groups focused on delivering a product in a holistic manner, you get products that fail to meet the expectations of the consumers. Now, when I tell people this, they all shake their heads and go, yeah. Well, we work together pretty well at our company. You know what? But it isn't about working together well. It's about focusing on the same end goal. What often happens is that marketing is focused on an experience they think the consumer wants to have, but the R&D is focused on developing a great tasting or unique functioning product. And when it comes to research, we see the split is just as prevalent. We see concept optimization being completed primarily with qualitative research, and when it is quantitative, it's focused on purchase intent, whereas recipe optimization is focused almost exclusively on liking without even introducing the brand or the concept into the research. The problem is that liking does not equate to behavior, and the reality is you need to balance the marketing message and the science together on the purpose of the brand if you want the product to have a product that sets the correct expectations for a person and then can deliver on that experience. To illustrate this, I'm going to pick on Kellogg's new Cinnabon bars just a little bit. And I don't want to offend anybody who may have worked on this, so this is just based on my personal experience with the product. Now, when a person sees the Cinnabon brand on this box, they're thinking about that really amazing sensory and diet-crushing experience that is a Cinnabon cinnamon roll. It's that world-famous Macara cinnamon, the melt-in-your-mouth sugar overload that they call frosting, and that warm, gooey, messy experience that makes you tune out the noise of the mall just to get that one moment of sensory zen. So when Kellogg's put the Cinnabon brand on the package of snack bars, they brought along with that all the brand's identity, its purpose, and all the expectations for both the sensory performance and the experience, that experience of momentary peace. However, that's not what they delivered. Now, they delivered a great tasting bar, to be sure. Personally, I think they taste great, especially when you heat them up. But they don't have the sharp Macara cinnamon character. It's more of a smooth, mellow cinnamon. And they have a crunchy frosting. Doesn't even melt when you heat it up. Tastes nothing like the warm, gooey sugar that tops a real Cinnabon. To me, it feels like the R&D team is optimizing by testing with unbranded products and focusing on creating the most liked product. And they did. They created a great tasting product. It just doesn't match the brand. So the best option would have been to optimize for attributes other than liking. Use the brand and optimize for the brand's values or purpose. Maybe world-famous Macara cinnamon, or optimize towards melt in your mouth, or provides me a moment in time where I can block out the craziness of my day, or something like, I would gladly cheat on my diet for this, right? So in addition, marketing needs to meet the product where it can be built. Clearly, you're not going to be able to fully replicate a Cinnabon cinnamon roll in snack bar form, so some concessions and balance needs to be made so that expectations are not set poorly. For instance, on the back of the box it says, melt-in-your-mouth frosting. Well, since this product has a crispy, crunchy frosting that doesn't melt in your mouth, maybe wanted to change that part of the messaging. Maybe something like delicious frosting without the mess. I don't know, but it's important to set expectations that can be delivered. Also, on the instructions, it says it tastes great warm, and to heat it, you put it in the microwave for 3 seconds. Now, I'm not sure what kind of nuclear-powered microwaves the R&D team at Kellogg's is using, but a standard 1100-watt microwave doesn't even think about making this bar warm in 3 seconds. After 10 seconds, it's okay. 15, at least it's steaming. But 3, it's just creating disbelief, and the consumers start to lose trust in the brand. That's why balancing the science with the marketing is so critical. A great idea and a great tasting product that don't connect with the brand's values, and they don't make an overall great product. They create consumers who stop buying the product because it's not meeting their expectations. So aside from changing the culture of your company, how can we ensure that we have balance between the marketing and the science? Well, the first step is to set the correct goals for your product. First, focus on the brand and list out its values and its purpose. Ensure that you are targeting those as you seek to develop your product. By taking that as the first step, you're going to be able to balance the science and the marketing trade-offs more effectively. So in addition to having great balance and great harmony between all aspects of the product, you also need to deliver a product that's differentiated. But what does it mean to really be differentiated? If I ask people about this, I get usually a pretty technical standpoint. This is an orange. Those are apples. They're different. Or this product's made with a different type of artificial sweetener than the other. However, it's not how we differentiate products. It's how consumers differentiate products that matters. And what consumers care about are what the products do for them, not just what they are or how they're made. So a key to understanding product differentiation is to ask yourself, what job does this product do? Then address each of 4 areas as you answer that question. First is a product's utility. Utility is about the product performance. It's the function that a product performs or the outcome of using the product. Good examples are products that provide nutrition or create convenience for the consumer. This photo here, we've got a man on a unicycle that allows him to get exercise, keep up to date with his stock portfolio, and get to work. Very utilitarian. Next, you can also differentiate your product on the sensory job that it provides. And sensory has to do with all of our senses: sight, touch, sound, taste, smell. It's all aspects of how we physically perceive a product. This encompasses the texture of a food, like its crunchiness, how it melts in your mouth, as well as the sensory pleasure or pain that is sensed. So this lady smelling the daisy, provides an effervescence in the nose that gives you a little tingling sensation. You can also differentiate your product on social aspects. Social aspects of a product are those that provide definition to a person's sense of self, their self-social identity. Things like interactive games or a team that you identify with are how you share in that product's social job and the social jobs that product performs. Finally, you can differentiate on the emotional jobs a product performs, how it stimulates you mentally, providing you things like comfort or surprising you. For instance, the pogo stick here is synonymous with exhilaration. Right? These 4 ways to differentiate are based on what the product does for you. They help you define the purpose of the brand and the job that the brand has to provide. By finding ways to differentiate in all of these areas, you're not only going to increase the separation between your product and others, but you're also going to connect with people in a more complete manner. Now, in order to deliver differentiation, you must optimize those things that you can control. We call these the design features of the product. Right? Features are how we describe the product's design or makeup, or how we talk about or message the product. So they're things like the curved or the straight sides of a glass, right? The presence or absence of different types of fruit or garnish. It's whether it's made with sugar or aspartame or stevia. Right? Features are what cue or signal the job that the product is expected to deliver on. So optimizing the features allows you to not only differentiate, but also ensures that you're able to deliver on those expectations. Let's take a look at some winning products and how they're able to differentiate themselves in these areas. Now, it's important to note that you want to be different in all of these areas, or certainly have thought through all of these areas for your products. But I'm going to just pick on the one area for each of these examples. So Red Bull differentiates to really a large extent on their utility. It gives you wings. Right? They've been able to create and maintain their differentiation in a growing market by focusing on the utility that product provides. They focus their brand completely around the idea, from the commercials to the events they sponsor, and they've developed and tested their product in context where people need a product with the utility to give them a lift. Twizzlers maintains clear differentiation because it provides a unique sensory experience. It's fun in your mouth. The product is designed to enhance sensory sensations. You have to tear the strips apart. The twisty texture feels fun on your fingers and your lips. It breaks into lots of pieces as you chew it to stimulate your mouth. There's optimization on the features of this product around delivering a fun, engaging, prolonged sensory experience. Mars has found a way to differentiate their bite-sized Dove Promises in a very crowded chocolate category by creating a unique social context. Dove Promises have a little saying on the inside of the package, and now you can go online, order the product with customized sayings that allows you to share chocolate with your friends in a way that connects with your social identity. And Oreos, of course, are a great example of a product with emotional differentiation. There's just no other sandwich cookie out there that provides that intense emotional journey of fun but comfort like an Oreo. So remember, you got to think about all four of these areas as you cover your product and how you want to differentiate and optimize holistically. Now, in order to truly understand the jobs of the product, what jobs the products are going to do for people, you also have to keep in mind who are the people and in what context they're in. So let's start with context. Context is not only the place and time, but it's the consumer's physical state and state of mind. For example, think about a Butterfinger candy bar at the movie theater. One problem with Butterfingers is that their packaging forces you to take your mind off the movie to eat it. You can't stay engaged with the movie and enjoy a Butterfinger at the same time. However, if you change the packaging so it fits the needs of a person at the movies, you can optimize the product to ensure that they have a pleasurable experience. So the new package, slim so you can sneak it into the theater, bite-sized so you can share, right? It's in cardboard so it's okay to put it on that sticky floor. It's quiet when getting pieces out and eating it without losing any sort of connection then with the movie itself. The effect of context is especially clear when we start thinking about how much a person is willing to pay for the product. For instance, we know we'd never pay $4 for a bottle of Fiji water at a store, but we might add $4 to a hotel bill to drink the same bottle of water simply because we're pampering ourselves on a vacation. So take time to list out all the different contexts in which consumers could purchase and consume your product, and connect those to the jobs that the product will perform. This will continue to provide you focus and streamline your optimization process. So of course, targeting wouldn't be complete without considering the people. They are the reason we're making these products in the first place, right? Targeting people is not about identifying demographic groups, but it's rather about identifying behavior groups and differentiating behaviors based on what jobs they're connected to. For instance, if I study pasta eating behaviors, I'm going to find a group of people that lifts their pasta high out of the bowl and grabs the noodles with their lips and slurps them in. And another group that twists the noodles nice and tidy on their fork and carefully places them in their mouth using their teeth to bite off the noodles so they have consistent mouthfuls. Now, if I take those two behavior segments and tie them to their jobs to be done, I see that slurpers need pasta that provides an exciting sensory zip. It's something where they can see themselves having that little Disney noodle kissing experience from Lady and the Tramp, right? And it lifts their spirit in a fun and exciting way. Contrast that with the twirlers, who want a noodle that provides a classic Italian experience with strong flavors and a sense of family and provides security and comfort, right? Knowing these things, I have an opportunity to optimize my noodles for the people and their jobs. For instance, for slurpers, I want a noodle that slides easily across the lips, whereas the twirlers need a noodle that holds the sauce to the pasta. I can go about optimizing my noodles specifically to fulfill these two distinct behavioral segments. So let's get specific for a second. Here's a nice, simple way to understand people's behaviors, contexts, and jobs. Build a questionnaire where you make the questions as conversational as possible and walk through the process of using your product from start to finish using a combination of check all that apply and open-end type questions. Start by setting the stage for them and make sure you use language so it sounds like you're having a one-on-one conversation with them. For instance, for the pasta research, I would say, imagine you're in your kitchen making your favorite pasta and sauce meal for dinner. Could you help me understand your process for making and eating your meal? Then ask them what they're making and ask them to be specific about the context of the meal. Put any answer list that you have for check all that apply questions in the form of how they would respond to you in a conversation. For instance, you might want to know how they know when their pasta is done. Answers should be reasonably conversational, so things like, oh, I just pull a piece of pasta out of the boiling water and use my fingers to squish it a bit. As you walk through the whole process in this manner, you're going to find that people are quite good at relating their basic behaviors. And this is a great way for you to understand the scope of some of the most common behavior patterns for a specific situation. It allows you to have a good understanding of where your brand or your product is connected and how you can clearly differentiate and connect with real behaviors. To dig deeper into jobs that people want their products to accomplish, we need to leverage conversation or storytelling. Now, by far the deepest information comes from using a combination of some observation and storytelling. But one simple way that you can do this is to put together journals or diaries where each story, each entry that a person enters is a story that that person tells, and then you have that person help you quantify. As an example, focusing on pasta dinners that are made at home, we ask people to tell us in their own words what they hoped would happen during the meal. This gets them to outline some of their expectations of the situation, and because they're focused on the event, you're going to see the role that pasta played in accomplishing those expectations. So after they write down their story, then you can start to build lists of the most common jobs and build on that list over time, so the list eventually encompasses all the jobs that need to be done. And once we understand the jobs that need to be done, we can start to create products that differentiate based on those jobs. You then can go one step further by reviewing the stories and the information with each person on a personal interview. And this is going to allow you to really gain a clearer understanding of the needs and desires of the person and identify jobs that they're really not able to articulate in a questionnaire format. Now, gaining a good understanding of unarticulated needs is important, and it's a really important part of targeting unique people. And there's three basic ways that you can identify these needs: observation, conversation, and creative thinking. Now, there's a lot of ways you can observe the consumer. Ethnography and observing people in context is a really good way to see what's working and what's not. You can also learn quite a bit by observing behaviors in research environments. For instance, watching people prepare a product in a research kitchen or monitoring their reactions when they're given a product that's new to them. Additionally, you can have people use video cameras and diary a specific certain event that's highly focused and provides unique insights into that one situation. Conversations are also very powerful. Talked about those a little already. And we find that when engaged in conversations, people describe needs without realizing they're doing so. And by using a hybrid research method, you can see how people are answering questionnaires, and you can dig deep into the why behind their answers with a conversation surrounding a task that you've had them do. Storytelling is also quite powerful for finding those things that people really enjoy and what they're hoping to desire for. People use stories to highlight and even exaggerate their emotions. So this allows you to spot opportunities to focus your product so it's more optimal for people. And finally, creative thinking, where you are working not with the consumers themselves or usually even the target audience, but you're bringing together people who are very creative or are experts in the field, and you're conducting ideation and brainstorming sessions that focus on specific events. So using a creative process, you can dig deep into a specific context and outline the needs that people don't think about in a rational way. In order to optimize your product for the consumers, you need to ensure that it's differentiated from their point of view. You've got to develop a product that fulfills the desires and finds new ways to connect with them in the job that it provides. Take time to list out what jobs your product will do for people who have specific behaviors in a certain context, and use that information to provide clarity to all the people working on the product so that you're all focusing on the same goal. Now, once we understand the purpose of the brand, the jobs that need to be done by what consumers in what context, we can start working on optimizing the product's design and to think through what preferences our target has and what choice we want them to make. Developing true brand preferences is critical to long-term success of a product. To that extent, it's helpful to talk about preferences and how those preferences can be leveraged. Now, there's a lot of types of preferences: brand preferences, feature preferences, sensory preferences, and preferences for different qualities of a product that can assist in getting the jobs done. As we optimize, we need to keep brand preferences as the foundation and the most sustained. Therefore, we spend most of our efforts optimizing and surrounding the surrounding preferences. So features, sensory profiles, and qualities of the products. Those things can change over time, but the brand needs to have longevity for the product to be successful. Now, I don't have time to talk through all the different types of preferences and the ways you can use preferences today, so I'm just going to pick sensory preferences and talk a little bit about that. Sensory preferences are essentially the sensations that we enjoy experiencing. As an example, there's people who prefer more sour apples and those that prefer less sour apples. Now, let's say I'm creating a new apple pie. If I just want one apple pie in my line, I'll need to target one preference group or the other. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with a pie that's square in the middle, one that's not sour enough for one group and too sour for the other. Well, gaining an understanding of the preferences in research is important, but we need to consider what types of preferences are important and whether or not a person is actually able to accurately describe their preferences to you. So I'm going to demonstrate this. I'm going to bring up 3 different polls here, and I want everybody to answer, not because I want the data, but because I want you to experience answering the question. So here's our first poll. The question is, which kind of pizza crust do you prefer? Is it thin crust or thick crust? So go ahead and vote. Tell me which kind of crust you're going to prefer. I see people are still voting. Nice and quick here. Most of the people have voted. All right, I am going to close the poll and show what everybody said. We've got primarily thin crust lovers in our audience. All right, this is an example of a question that's fairly direct and fairly easy for people who eat a lot of pizza to answer. All right, another poll here. Get it up. The next poll is, which kind of chocolate do you prefer? Are you a milk chocolate person or are you a dark chocolate person? All right, almost everybody's voted. Clicking in there. Okay, this is a pretty direct question, and people usually have a pretty easy time answering it, and I see we got 60-40 split here of dark to milk chocolate lovers in the audience today. But it's really dependent on context, right? And so responses to this question could be very misleading to a researcher. I may ask if you prefer dark or milk chocolate, but based on the context and the type of product that chocolate is used in, you actually may prefer the other type. So asking a question that has very strong context relations is something that you need to be aware of. All right, here's the last poll. Last poll is, which of the following cinnamons do you prefer the taste of? We have Ceylon and Saigon cinnamon here. And we have a few people going. Almost everybody's voted now. Alright, and show everybody what we said. And we see that pretty much everybody has no clue. But it is something that people really can't answer unless they're hardcore sensory people, which we obviously have a few of in the audience. Yeah, you guys know who you are. But for the general population, you're going to need to do a taste test to find out about this type of a preference. All right. Once we understand the sensory preferences of our target, one thing that we can do is to use these preferences to help us recruit the correct people for our research. Now, there's two practical approaches to help you with recruiting consumers by preference. The first is developing a panel of people based on their actual taste preferences. You simply need to develop a database of people that have specific preferences. You can do it either by running special sessions, or you can just add on preference tests to the end of other types of research that you're already running. And it's a great way to ensure that you're targeting the right people as you optimize your product. Alternatively, you can develop a classification model that predicts an individual's preferences based on other types of products that they purchase, as an example. And this is a really nice method if you know you're going to be targeting and recruiting a large number of people over longer periods of time. It's a little less accurate, but it's really fast. So how do we actually test for preferences? The first thing to remember is that preferences are highly dependent on context. Not only the context of the situation they're in, but the information that you know. So thus a person's preference when they know the brand is going to be different than when they don't know the brand. Letting people know the brand or other information about the product provides a more holistic understanding of the preferences and allows for them to incorporate other aspects of the jobs that product provides. And it certainly should be included if you're going to focus on understanding how to fulfill the desires of people. Blind preferences, on the other hand, should be used when we're focusing on understanding the needs the product will have to fulfill, or when we're working on quality control issues or claim substantiation type research. So the difference here, branded, if you're looking at understanding how to fulfill desires, blind, if you're looking at more utilitarian fulfilling of needs. Now, while preference information is great, often in order to really understand how to optimize a product, we want to understand the why behind the preferences. Multivariate techniques such as preference mapping are really great when you have access to a lot of data and lots of different types of data. But today I'm going to give you a simple tip that you can use in any piece of research. So after you ask a person for their preference between two or more items, have them focus on an occasion, a friend, and the product as separate items. For instance, for occasion, you might ask them to tell you about a time where they could see themselves enjoying this product in the future. Or if it's something that they have a lot of experience with, you can have them tell you about past experiences, both good and bad. Focusing on the occasion rather than the product allows you to understand how the product preferences fit into the jobs that need to be done in an occasion. You can also focus on other people. Pick one of these products that you think your friend would prefer. Tell me what it is about your friend that makes you think they would prefer it. Notice the focus on the friend, not on the product. And when you do focus on the product, get really specific. Have them complete sentences or focus on a specific sensation or a feature of the product. And you can use this in a very hybridized manner where you take their answers and then pull them off and have deep discussions with them about those occasions, those friends, and the features that all come together. Understanding the why is going to help you ensure that you're on track when you optimize towards values that you already set out for your product to accomplish. Another practical item is a decision whether to include a no preference option as one of the possible answers to a preference question. Including a no preference is great when you want to dig deeper into the whys of preference. People that have no preference often are going to provide us great insights as to whether you're on track with your products or not. The reason is they might be positive to both products or all the products they were testing, or negative. Understanding which one and why they're either positive or negative allows you to better understand where the products are succeeding or failing. So no preference people can be the key to figuring out if really important jobs are being done or left undone. And if, on the other hand, you're screening for target consumers or you're working with a product where you want to see the effect of extended use, forcing them to select which one they prefer can uncover unconscious preferences and allow you to see patterns that you wouldn't see if you had included a no preference option. So in addition, it's important to understand that our preferences change over time as we have more experiences with a product. Now, I remember my mom telling me when I was a kid that I had to eat at least one slice of tomato for every piece of pizza I ate, and that I would grow to like them over time. Well, it ended up being true, but it really isn't far from the truth, right? For instance, we take condiments, ketchup, mustard. We buy a bottle, we put it in our fridge, we use it many times for many different jobs before we're at the store again making a decision whether to buy the product again. Right? This means that we're making decisions based on the preferences that when we make decisions based on preferences collected in a central location test, those might not be stable to the preferences a person has after using the products multiple times in multiple situations. So how a product performs over time is going to change our preferences. Right? Pretty classic example is two products in a first use tend to have fairly even split preferences, but they tend to show more difference between them as people get to use them over time. Right? An effect of oftentimes unconscious reasons for why they prefer one product or the other. We also need to consider whether we want to rely on that single point of time data, right? For instance, as we get in a central location taste test, or if the longitudinal research is really what's going to be needed in order for us to optimize our product. So what are the jobs that need to be done? Are they something that you can test in a single location, or is it something that you can only test when somebody's used it for an extended period of time? All right, so now that we've covered preferences, let's talk about the choices that people actually make, the in-market reality of a product. All of our research is going to do us no good if we don't create a product that people will take off the shelf on a repeated basis. So what does choice really mean? There's two major types of consumer choices, rational and intuitive. Rational choices are the result of conscious deliberation, like choosing a wall hook because it's strong enough to hold a heavy coat. Intuitive choices are more immediate and might not make rational sense if you took time to consider them. Like a lady who sees a dress in the window and just gotta have it and buys it even though she can't think of any time in the near future where she could actually wear it. Rational choices are the things that we do deliberately. They're based on the kinds of things we would expect consumers to care about. Here, features, functionality, and objective value play a large role. A consumer who knows she's going to use a lot of nails and sees a larger pack of nails that cost less per nail is making a rational choice. A product that carries a guarantee or claims to perform better are strong influencers for the rational decision maker. Now, marketers can take advantage of rational choice by emphasizing benefits from features and functionality. A laundry detergent that cleans more effectively than the competition can take market from the leading competitor if it can effectively target consumers who make their laundry detergent choices rationally. Store brands, right, they're continuing to grow their share of market through a focus on value for the money. Forcing people to consider their choices very rationally is breaking them out of their normal buying habits, and it's creating the opportunity for that changed behavior. So if you're the store brand and you're working on a product that needs to take share from the category leader, optimizing towards rational aspects of the product is going to be a critical element of your strategy. Intuitive choices take many forms, but I'm going to focus on two of what I consider to be the most important, emotional and habitual choices. Now, we all know that emotions affect the way we act and how we consider things, and we may or may not always be aware of these effects, but many times emotions are more responsible for purchase decisions than our rational thought. For instance, the amount of money people are willing to pay for a set of Madonna CDs, that little graph on the right, it varies when people are primed emotionally based on their desires versus rationally based on the cost. People thinking emotionally valued the CD packs more when there were fewer in the pack, but the amount that they were willing to pay pretty much plateaued as the number of CDs increased. The rationally thinking respondents, on the other hand, valued the CD packs proportional to the number of CDs in the pack. So this is a good example of what's called a priming effect. in which people are predisposed to think about something in a particular way because of a prior stimulus. So as we optimize our messaging, we're generally trying to do exactly that, to create associations for consumers that influence their thinking the next time they encounter their product. So it's their thinking or their emotions, certainly. Do you want your consumers to be thinking about how the laundry detergent works, or the comfort of a trusted brand and a familiar smell? So it's important to understand what you're trying to achieve as you think about how you want to optimize your product. Habits also play heavily into consumer behavior. Not many people have the time or energy to think about every single purchase decision every time they make it in the grocery store. More likely, we're hurried, preoccupied, simply don't give it a second thought. We know exactly where to reach for the gallon of milk, don't even glance at the competing product on sale. We're acting out of habit. And once we get our food home, we're even less likely to think very hard about whether to put milk on our cereal in the morning, how much to use. Our brain recognizes that as a problem we solved a long time ago, so it's not worthy of our immediate attention. When developing products and marketing them, it's crucial to understand how they fit into people's habits. Is your existing product something that consumers take off the shelf without even thinking of it, or is it a product that's being overlooked? Is your new product something that fits into your consumers' existing habits, or do you have to find a way to shift their habits? If you have a brand that's being purchased strongly based on habit, you're going to want to focus on optimizing your ability to prime consumers rather than having them think rationally about your product. When it comes to research methods, with rational choice, a lot of survey-based techniques work very well. Certainly, most are familiar with conjoint methods, but also tournaments, max-diff techniques are quite useful for helping to understand what elements of a product will generate the greatest possibility of in-market choice. With intuitive choices, putting products in home in extended use situations is an excellent method. And this allows you to compare multiple priming methods and multiple products in order to optimize the combination that creates the greatest amount of in-home use. For instance, one product that I had worked on had a problem where consumers were buying their product, taking it home, putting it in the cupboard, and hardly ever using it. By optimizing the messaging with a focus on extending their habitual use of the product to new occasions in home, we were able to increase the sales of that product by 6%. The key there was to integrate a product that they already loved and were already buying into their current habits. This made them use a product more often and therefore purchase it more often throughout the year. In order for you to ensure that you're optimizing your product to become ubiquitous and emotionally connected to the consumer through their lifestyle, values, and identity, you need to understand what choices people will make in a given context. You need to optimize your products so that you prime them to make emotional or habitual choices more often, or cause them to think rationally about your product to encourage new behaviors. Using choice-based designs and conducting longitudinal research studies to affect the different types of priming is going to help you select the most optimal product for the consumer. By applying the basic approaches that I've shown you today, you're going to find that you're going to be able to focus your optimization research very effectively. Remember that an optimized product is one that has charisma and fulfills the desires of a group of people. It's one that becomes ubiquitous to them and connects with them emotionally. It becomes deeply rooted to their lifestyle, values, and their identity. To optimize to this extent, first, focus on your brand values and the brand purpose. Balance the marketing message and the science based on the brand to set the correct expectations and then deliver against them. Second, list out what jobs your product's going to fulfill for people. Describe how it's going to be different with regards to utility, sensory, social, and emotional jobs. Third, identify the context your product needs to be optimized for and the consumers who you want to target based on their behaviors. Fourth, target your recruiting based on preferences and assume that preferences can and will change over time. And fifth, determine if you need a strategy that focuses on rational or intuitive choice. If rational, focus on optimizing for utility as the most important. If intuitive, focus on optimizing the priming effect. All right. Thank you very much for your attention. We now have time for questions. Michelle, do you have any questions from the audience so far?
I do indeed, Greg. I have a question from one person here who would like to know, how can we holistically optimize when we don't know the brand?
When we don't understand the brand, how can we holistically optimize? Well, certainly the question is, are you planning on applying the brand, or are you creating something completely new? If you're creating something completely new where you haven't developed the brand yet, you have to at least outline what's the purpose of that brand and what is that brand's expectation. What expectations is that brand going to set for people? So you need to understand those two things, what jobs this product's going to do and what needs is it going to fulfill, therefore what's its purpose. So you can work upwards as well in that fashion.
Great. I have another question from Lori here who asks if you have another good example of a priming effect.
If I have another good example of priming? I hadn't really thought about multiple examples for priming. I suppose a good example of priming is the rollout that I just saw last night on TV with the Oscar Mayer meats. So on TV, they used to always have, Oscar Mayer always had a jingle, right? You know, and everybody remembers the jingle probably for Oscar Mayer. But the commercial I saw last night, instead of being a jingle, really just focused on children having a very happy experience, right, and a fairly playful experience with the product. And as an adult who has kids, you know, to me it's like, wow, I want to buy a product that makes my kid that happy. So it was a really good example of a product that would make me say, I'm at the store shelf, this product is going to make my kid happy, versus, oh, this product probably tastes really good, right, or, you know, is less oily or less greasy. Right? So I've been primed by that emotional-driven pictures of those kids.
And along the same lines, we have another person here asking if you could give an example of a brand that seems to be doing a very good job of priming a product that is based on an intuitive decision.
I hadn't really thought about lots of different brands, but most definitely you see things like the brands that focus on the emotive context, certainly like Tide laundry detergent is doing now a very good job of priming based on, you know, it clean's a standard. It's everything else that matters. So that's certainly a good example. I mentioned the Twizzlers product is a good example of another product that's been primed very well.
Okay. We have another question. How do you create winning innovations in a systematic manner?
In a much more systematic manner. So today I kind of outlined a sequence of steps, right? So first you got to understand your brand, right? And then you have to understand what you want to target, what consumer, what context, what jobs to be done, what emotional outcome. Once you have those things, then you can get creative and expand the scope, and you can look at all the different aspects of design that are going to potentially accomplish those facets. Then you need to filter those ideas down, and then you can conduct preference, choice-based work, and all of your other fairly classic product optimization. If it's food, taste tests, if it's personal care, your in-home claims type work, those types of things to start filtering down to make sure you understand what formulations go in context. Now, obviously, design of experiment and things like that, there's a lot of other unique techniques, But again, the step is brand, target, and then design and test.
Great. So Terry was wondering, how do you balance the number of variables tested versus your budget constraints and the time required to make samples?
Right. That's a really hard question to answer for some particular products because there's so many ways sometimes that come out of that creative design. What you really want to do, though, is go through each of the variables and ask yourself, is this a design variable that is going to significantly impact the brand's purpose or the jobs that this product is going to be able to do? Start filtering down those rationally, and then once you've got your smaller list, if you're really constrained, start working off that list first. You might miss something. It's always a possibility when you are constrained and have to cut some corners or don't have the budget to do everything. But that certainly is the best way to start filtering down those potential variables.
I think we have time for another question before we kick everyone out, I guess. How should a brand approach competitive testing with a store brand?
Well, I think that this is a much more broad topic than something that I can answer right now, and it's certainly something kind of setting me up for what's all right on the bottom of the screen there. When you set yourself up against a private label or a store brand, you need to understand what you're competing against. And you need to understand, as I mentioned at the very end there, how choices are being made. One of the things that you see store brands driving towards right now is that very, very rational, value-centric focus. If you're competing on value, you've got to be able to produce a product that is very utilitarian in nature and does a better job of providing that value. Whereas if you're competing based on context or jobs to be done, then you can start focusing on emotions and other types of utilities and sensory aspects and social aspects of a product that make it compete more readily with those private labels. But we are going to do a webinar this next month on beating the private label challenge, and that one, if you're really interested in studying a private label versus a CPG brand, that would definitely be a good strategic thinking seminar to come to.
Wonderful. Well, I think this is a good time to segue into our close here and to look a little closer at the description of that next webinar. We'll let you read that for yourselves. But once again, we'd just like to thank you for joining us today, and we would love you to have to participate in our next webinar, Beating the Private Label Challenge, Research That Will Shape Your Strategy, which will be with Dave Lendahl on February 24th. More information is on your screen, or check out our website at www.insightsnow.com in the coming days for more information. As you exit, we'd also love to have your input. If you could fill out the survey that will pop up, hopefully in another web browser, as you exit, that will help us to create webinars in the future that are even better and more relevant to you. So thank you very much, and thank you, Greg, and everyone have a wonderful day.